So on this episode, Kent and I are going to dive into just another conversation, and this time he is going to ask me, because the last episode we talked about his biggest fear as a father, but my biggest fear as a mother. So as you listen in, just keep your mind open, and we hope that you hear and receive and can conquer any fear or fears that you're having in motherhood.
So last episode, you asked me a question, which is basically the biggest fear I've had to overcome is being a father. So we're going to turn this around and ask you the exact same question. So what is the single biggest fear as a mom relating to being a mother that you have had to overcome?
I have no fear. No, I'm just kidding. I think for me, one of the greatest fears that I've had to overcome is the thought or the idea of when my children grow up and get older, that they're not going to want to have anything to do with me. That there'll be, broken relationship. And so I think because of that, before I realized that this was a genuine fear and on the inside of me, I would want to force relationship. When they're younger, it's really easy because I think your kids, they need you.
They come to you for everything.
They need you. And sometimes as a mom, it can be one of the most annoying things to hear. Mom, 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 will you do this? Can you do this? Mom, 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 all the time. But as they get older, you don't hear that, and they're not asking you 100 different times, Mom, will you do this? Mom, will you do that? Mom, I need you. They stop, so to speak, needing you so much, and that can feel I don't know, to me, I don't want to experience that void of.
Hey, it's no problem. When they stop needing you, I can just start saying, Liz.
That's right. But, so we can tend to loathe hearing the word mom 1,000 times, having our kids need us. But then as they grow up and you teach them and you train them how to be, independent and not need you as much, that you'll lose relationships. So I think if we're not careful in that place, we can become overbearing and try to force that. And so for me, what I believe stepped into to try to help break that is being intentional about having connection with them, and not connection that I need to fill something that I feel could be void in me, but connection that they need. Just making sure I've connected with them.
So don't you think that possibly, because I think we've seen this before, that a lot of times the mothers will end up actually driving their children away because their need to be needed is so great that they become obnoxious to their children. And instead of building a relationship with them to serve them, it's as if they're building a relationship with their children so their children can serve them. So they're not serving their children, which is what it should be, but they're looking for their children to serve them.
Right.
And so that actually builds an improper relationship that oftentimes when kids get older, they're like, I don't want to have anything to do with this. And we've seen that. Would you say that can be a way that moms will step into sometimes with children?
Yeah, totally. Because, it's really what it goes back to is this improper, codependency, where you need your children to fill a need that you have on the inside of you. And so you force relationship. And then when that relationship seems like it's drifting apart, when in fact it's just changing because seasons change in life, and you're wanting them to not be as dependent on you, but that's crazy. I mean, that's it's just a different season, and so different seasons need different navigation. And so what we'll do if we're not careful is that because we have this codependency and we have Like our life is centered around being a mom. We have identity in motherhood and momming that will put like this, will latch on, and will put this pressure on, like always needing, like, and then get to nagging and get to forcing conversation, and why are you avoiding me, and why aren't you talking to me, and how come you're doing this to me, and it's like a very improper balance if you're codependent on your children. And here's
Right.
the thing, that's never supposed to be like, you shouldn't be dependent upon your children to receive anything, because that puts pressure on them that they're not supposed to have.
Yeah.
They're supposed to have a interdependent relationship with their
The reason
parents.
for having kids and raising kids is, I mean, there's multiple facets to it. You love children, you want to have them, obviously, and God's given us the ability to do that, so we procreate, all that. And for people that can't, they'll adopt for the same reasons, because they want to take care of children and they want to raise them to be productive members of society.
Right.
But a reason for having children should never be to fill a void in you.
That's right.
And I think that that's not very common with men.
Right.
There could be some instances with that. But when it comes to women, that is a very common thing,
Right.
that they will want children, and it's to fill a void. And if you have any kind of void in you, and men will do this with work to fill a void in them.
Right.
Because men tend to be more relational. Women tend to be more relational. Men tend to be more transactional and more about fixing stuff. Women
Right.
want to relate. Men want to fix.
Right.
Which says a lot of problems in marriage, challenges that people have. But when it comes to children, women oftentimes will want this relationship with their children in order to really fix up something broken in them,
Right.
instead of to fill a void, instead of allowing the Lord to fill that void.
Right.
And so I think that this goes back to the fear that often women will have, according to what you're saying, is that their kids won't want to have anything to do with them.
Right.
And so why would a woman have that fear? And I think it's because there's something broken on the inside of them that needs to be fixed. And if you're going to become a great mom, you can't have that insecurity in your life.
Right. Because then that insecurity will just continue to drive you, which actually will create wedge in relationship. Instead of building relationship, you're just driving
Yeah.
your children, so to speak, further away from you, because they're like, I can't fill that need that you have. Like, I can't do it, especially as they get older and they are realizing that they'll be like, I can't do that. I don't want to do that, and I need to break away. And then if they're not careful, there's like this hard break
Yeah.
where they,
And then you have the mom going, I did everything. I loved them. I did. And she did love them, and she did do everything she could. But there was always an undercurrent there.
Right.
And so oftentimes there will be a break there,
right,
and the kids don't even know why.
Right.
It's like, my mom was she loved me, but she was so overbearing.
right,
And she was overbearing because she was trying to have the children fill a need in her that
Right.
only Jesus can fill.
right. And
Yeah.
then I think sometimes too, in that place where we're thinking we're being nice and loving, like it turns into like some hardness on the inside, because we're realizing that our children can't actually fill the void that we want them to fill. And so anger or things can just get hard, like lots of harsh words or wrong tones, and that will just to like drive things further away. And then there's also like this place too where as your kids get older and they're not coming to you as much, there's this gap where there's this space, and that space sometimes can feel uncomfortable in the sense that you're wondering if you want to do something for them, or if they're going to need you, or if they're always going to be quiet, or if they're not telling you something but that they need to. And so sometimes if we'll try to bridge that by like prying and and forcing relationship and conversation when we need to be okay with, they know that I love them, they know that I am available, we have had connection, I am a safe place, I've been vulnerable with them in the past, and there's a door always for them to come and have a conversation with me. And so I have to give them space and time to be able to come back to me. Now, sometimes you have to have conversations, especially with your teenagers, and confront things or whatever. But just in general, there's this spot that you can get to where you're just trusting that you have done everything that you know to do, and that they will come to you, and that space is okay.
Yeah.
And you don't have to force anything.
So, simple answer to the point. A woman who's dealing with this fear, mom who's dealing with this fear of their kids having nothing to do with them, how does she attack the fear in real time? How does she deal with that?
Well, you have to change your center or what you're focusing on, and you can't have a codependency upon anything. The Lord has to become our dependency and our center and the thing that we go to. And as we're then in relationship with the Lord, then everything else, all the other relationships will get almost corrected and fixed, because they're not filling a need.
Right.
Because you could have a codependency upon so many different kinds of relationship. You could have it with work, you could have it with children, you could have it with your spouse. So you can, even as life goes on and you're like, oh, I can't be dependent upon my kids anymore, they're not filling that need, and like shift to a different, like your husband filling that place or something like that if you're not careful. So it really goes back to, at the core, who is my ultimate thing that I am dependent on, and who's going to fill all of that need that I have. I am functioning as a mother, but that is not my identity. Yeah. And when we fully and truly know who we are and whose we are, then all of our functions seem to function correctly, if that makes sense. So to me, the biggest thing that we have to go back to is that I'm going to put my trust and my focus and my dependency on my relationship with the Lord. And as I'm doing that, then He's going to show me how to navigate all the other relationships that I have in my life. And then because of that, I'm going to bear a lot of fruit in the other places, which is ultimately what I want anyways, is fruit in the relationships. But it goes back to my dependency upon the Lord.
Amen. Good stuff.
Thank you for listening in on this conversation. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. Share with your friends and on your socials. For more information about Ward Ministries, check out wardmen.org. If this podcast is encouraging you on your marriage and family, we want to hear about it. Email us at info@wardmen.org, and make sure you keep your eye out weekly for the latest podcast on marriage and family.